wow. Yeah, I got a pretty tight schedule, and I thought that this was going to be it at the end of the half hour.
That's no problem, but I appreciate you being on my show and giving me this kind of income. It's encouraging that we do have a lobbyist out there that actually understands what's happening here. And my hat's off to you, Larry Pratt.
Well, thank you, sir. It's good to be with you.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Be sure this will be up. This will be available on my site. If you can let people on your email list know that they can hear this show by going to freeamerican.com and clicking on your name today. Within about 30 minutes after, in about 1 hour here, it'll all be up on the website. And I'd really appreciate that because, Larry, they're trying to stifle me. They don't want people listening to me. They don't want people going to my show. They don't want people reading my books. And it's really an economic war against Clay Douglas right now. It seems like. So I'd appreciate any help. I'm blocked. The Free American is blocked in every library and in Intel and Intuit. They say I'm a porno site.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Yeah, well, you know, and you and I are both listed in the NAACP as racist and bigots, you know. So.
Well, that's all they can think about. So I think that might tell us something about who the racist is.
I think so. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you being on my show.
Take care. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Bye-bye now. Okay. Now let me do that. Okay, that's good. All right, so we're still recording here. We're still going, and yeah, chat rooms have been interesting today. We've got so many people. Of course, yeah. Let's see. God, we no. Oh, lady, you kicked God, Jesus, and Satan out. I mean, we were about to get a party going. Oh, my goodness. My goodness. That's right. You know, iPod Nano dude, I know who you are. You know, you just come in here, you just like getting kicked there, jerk? Nanopod dude. What is with you people? No, you haven't done anything, but I know who you are. What's with you people? These are, oh well, okay. What we're talking about, really, the mainstream news is starting to talk about the pharmaceutical industry. Well, they're kind of getting out of hand, and everybody on the street is talking about the gas prices. Every time we get into a war, they up the gasoline prices to cover this. Well, we gotta buy, you know, and the government's buying the gasoline for the planes. That's right. You're right. The private company, the Federal Reserve, is controlling all this. They were the ones. They control the intelligence agencies because they have all the money. The intelligence agencies are doing the drug smuggling. The CIA and the Mossad, and that's where it all. It's all in my book, Mystery Babylon. It's all there. And so if you want to do a little line of cocaine, you want to smoke a joint, well then you are buying your goods from the CIA. I said I lived in Miami. I've done cocaine. I quit doing it when I found out the CIA was making all the money off of it. Same thing, you know. They make the money off the heroin. That's why we went into Vietnam. You know, that's why this is why we're doing all of this. Good work, Uncle. Allah. Yeah, where's Buddha? Where's Buddha? Okay. Yeah, the money comes from, well, again, Thomas Jefferson. Let me quote Thomas Jefferson. If you ever allow a private bank to control your money, to issue your money, your children will grow up homeless in the land that we conquered. Now, what they're doing with the drug companies, with the food companies, with Monsanto, ninth plank, Communist Manifesto, corporate farms. Ninth plank on the Communist Manifesto. And seven, that's government control of agriculture. And they've been doing that. The war on the farmers started in the 30s when they took our billion-dollar crop, the crop that would renew the land, that would renew, if you plant it as a rotational crop, it renews the soil because it goes so deep it pulls the fulvic acid out of the soil. Speaking of fulvic acid, got my trace minerals for today. Well, jerk, because I said there's two things I can't tell you. I can't tell you whether the government took over the mafia or if the mafia took over the government. I can't tell you whether the government controls the press or the press controls the government. Because it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Like Republicans and Democrats, two wings of the same bird. And the government is a corporation. That's what's wrong with it. The president is the CEO of the United States Corporation, whose only real power is right there in its own thing. Yeah, and again, the U.S. did print its own money. I've got a $5 bill in my pocket that says United States note. It's debt-free money. And that was issued by Kennedy, Executive Order 11110. And immediately he was killed. And the first thing that son of a bitch Johnson did on the plane going back to Washington was recall that money. Then, of course, he also recalled the planes that were going to help the USS Liberty, and he got us involved and killed 58,000 of my brothers and about 1 million Vietnamese that never did a damn thing to us. Now, let's see what else we got. Yeah, we've got a few things here. Let's listen to this one. We had somebody in here talking about 9/11, and I just heard you heard at the beginning Jesse Ventura talking about trying to talk to somebody who's trying to put him down as a conspiracy theorist. You know, like you think. Has there ever been a war that was started without a conspiracy? A conspiracy is merely 3 people or 4 more getting together and deciding on a course of action. Now, this information I'm going to share with you says the military knows that Israel did 9/11.
I don't think at the beginning of the show that you read the doctor's credentials off. I wish you would, because it means a lot, and it means a lot to me to hear them.
Absolutely, and I will do that right now.
This is Dr. Alan Sabrowski.
This excellent article. Alan Sabrowski, Ph.D., University of Michigan, is a 10-year U.S. Marine Corps veteran and a graduate of the U.S. Army War College. Now, not only that, Dr. Sabrowski, correct me if I'm wrong here, not only are you a graduate of the U.S. Army War College, but you were director of studies there for some period of time. Is that correct?
That's correct, for 5.5 years.
5.5 years as Director of Studies at the U.S. Army War College. You know, of all the things that I would love to be able to have trailing behind my name, Dr. Sabrowski, being the Director of Studies at the U.S. Army War College would definitely be one of them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
When we look at the two wars that the United States finds herself in, and on the cusp of at least two others, and all of this for the benefit of a certain foreign a country sitting on the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea, they have been wildly successful at bringing all of this about. And I think one of the main components of this is the fact that very few people really understand the nature of the problem. And I think that your article here basically lays out the problem, which is that when you have people who try to make this claim that they are loyal to America and at the same time loyal to a foreign government, it is a lie.
Dual citizenship.
It is, and it's more than that, Mark. What we need to stand up and say is not only did they attack the USS Liberty, they did 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. I have had long conversations over the past 2 weeks with contacts at the Army War College, at Headquarters Marine Corps, and I've made it absolutely clear in both cases that it is 100% certain that 9/11 was a Mossad operation.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, I don't denigrate what happened to USS Liberty in the slightest. You understand that. But for most Americans, what happened to the USS Liberty or in Vietnam was history.
Mm-hmm.
This is history. They can be concerned about it, but they're not going to get mad about it.
Right.
9/11 has led directly to 60,000 Americans dead and wounded. God knows how many hundreds of thousands of people in other countries that we've killed or wounded or made homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an ongoing sore. It's not your sore from the USS Liberty. It's not my sore from Vietnam. Both of us have those. Both of us care about it. But this is this is an open wound. And what Americans need to understand is they did it.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. And if they do understand that, Israel's going to disappear. Israel will flat-ass disappear from this earth.
So you understand they're fighting.
I sent a film to one of my colleagues, and it basically had Americans grieving over their dead coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed one of them. It was a woman just wrenched by grief, over her dead soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if Americans ever know that Israel did this, they're going to scrub them off the earth, and they're not going to give a rat's ass, forgive my language, what the cost is. They are not going to care. They will do it.
Alan,
they should.
Alan, your article and your heart and your testimony and what you believe in is heart-wrenching to me. It is like our founding fathers in their
You get down
shadows
below and you see
talking,
molten steel.
we have to fix it.
Molten steel
We
running
have
down
to
the
make
channel.
our own way, and we have to
Like
do
we're
it
in a
now, or
foundry.
we will go down.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely, Phil. I agree fully.
your article needs to be shipped off to the Library of Congress immediately.
Well, I can tell you it's being read by some people in Headquarters Marine Corps.
By the way, the first arrest within hours of 9/11 were Israelis, at least, some of whom were confirmed to be agents of Israel's intelligence agency, the Mossad. They were high-fiving it over in New Jersey, filming the whole attack and high-fiving. Come on. They found them with explosive residue. The thermite was a part of this, and probably more. I think there was what we really saw there was the barometric bomb that Ted Gunderson alerted us to.
The Army War College. I sent it off to them this past week, and I've had some long discussions with people up there, and there are some really, really unhappy people.
What are they saying? If you can talk about that, Dr. Sprosky, I'm curious.
Astonishment.
Okay.
The first thing, Mark, is astonishment. They didn't know. They truly didn't know. And these are not unintelligent people. They really didn't know. And the next statement is rage, real rage, and the Zionists are playing this as truly an all or nothing exercise, because if they lose this one,
that's it.
If the American people ever realize what's happened, they're done.
That's it.
I have one grandparent who's Jewish.
So
it's not only a matter of blowing our cover. If Americans ever truly understand that, their history, it'll be a bloody, brutal war, and they're gone. I mean, it's not even going to be a close contest.
Well,
and they know that, and what they understand, I think, as well, is that their leverage is on the political appointments. Their leverage is not in the uniformed services. There are lots. If you pick up the Army Times or the Navy Times or any of the journals of any of the services, you get a very different view than you get, looking at the Congress and the White House. And the military has not been bought. The military is loyal, but it has not been bought. And if it ever understands this, really, really deeply understands this, and this is what I got when I put some of these things to the Army War College and to Headquarters Marine Corps, and I mentioned to a contact at Headquarters Marine Corps, I said, they did 9/11. And it was, you don't mean it. I said, absolutely. And if they ever understand that, these people are history.
Well, now let me ask you something, Doctor. And obviously, I understand that we need to protect the names of the innocent here, and this is
there
probably
there are no innocent.
Okay. I'd like to know a little bit more about this. I mean, these conversations that you're having with your colleagues who are still serving in uniform, what is the reaction on their part when you tell them things like this?
First a disbelief, and what I show them immediately afterwards is an interview with a Danish demolitions expert named Danny Jawenko, and it shows the third building at the World Trade Center going down, WTC-7.
Right.
And they look at that, and I said, now you understand that if one of the buildings was wired for demolition, all of them were wired for demolition.
Right.
And that's it.
That's exactly what I pointed out in the March issue of the Free American.
About who was flying what and where they were and whether there was nanothermite. Those things are true, but they're incidental.
Right.
The thing that's necessary is to tell people 3 buildings went down, the third was not hit by a plane, it was wired for controlled demolition, therefore all of them were wired for controlled demolition, and at that point the reaction is rage. First disbelief and then rage.
Well, I got to tell you, that I find to be very encouraging, because based upon the cursory conversations I have with some military people, and I have to be real careful about what I say, because you just don't know what you're walking into when you start a discussion of this type with one of them. Based upon these, as I said, cursory conversations that I've had with some of them, they're clueless and they don't want to hear about it. They are loyal to the flag that is on their left sleeve as a patch, and the thought that the government could be in any way involved in any kind of high crimes and treason against the United States, people of the United States, is just unthinkable to them. So I'm glad to hear that there still is some gray matter and some patriotism left, at least in the circles where you travel, Dr. Sabrowski.
Well, I mean, it's not that they don't want to hear it; it's that they don't know of it. And what I have done when I presented it to these people, and I said, just look at this. Just look at this picture. I'm not going to give you an argument. Just look at it. And they look at the film, and without exception, they come back and they say, they did it, didn't they? I said, yep, they did.
Well, that's from the director, Alan Zabrowski, Director of Studies at the U.S. Army War College,
known as derivatives, still waiting to collapse, a value amounting to over 10 times the gross domestic product of the entire planet. And while we have seen the bailouts of corporations and banks by governments, which of course comedically borrowed their money from banks to begin with, we are now seeing attempts to bail out whole countries by conglomerates of other countries through the international banks.
so they can own we can own their resources.
Bail out a planet.
They can own ours.
There is no country out there that isn't now saturated in debt. The cascade of sovereign debt defaults we have seen can only be the beginning when the math is taken into account. It has been estimated in the United States alone that income tax would need to be raised to 65% per person just to cover the interest in the near future. Economists are now foreshadowing that within a few decades, 60% of the countries on the planet will be bankrupt. But, hold on, let me get this straight. The world is going bankrupt, whatever the hell that means, because of this idea called debt, which doesn't even exist in the physical reality. It's only part of a game that we've invented. And yet, the well-being of billions of people is now being compromised. Extreme layoffs, tent cities, accelerating poverty, austerity measures imposed, schools shutting down, child hunger, and other levels of familial deprivation, all because of this elaborate fiction. What are we, fucking stupid?
Hey, Mars, my man. Help a brother out, huh?
Grow up, kid.
Saturn, what's up, man? You remember that smoking nebula I hooked you up with a while back? Listen, Earth, we're getting really tired of you. You've been given everything, and yet you waste it all. You got plenty of resources, and you know it. Why don't you grow up and learn some responsibility, for Christ's sake? You're making your mother miserable. You're on your own, pal. Yeah, whatever.
Now, all of this considered, from the waste machine known as the market system to the debt machine known as the monetary system, hence creating the monetary market paradigm, which defines the global economy today. There is one consequence that runs through the entire machine: inequality. Whether it is the market system, which creates a natural gravitation towards monopoly and power consolidation, while also generating pockets of wealthy industries that tower over others regardless of utility, such as the fact that top hedge fund managers on Wall Street now take home over $300 million a year for contributing literally nothing, while a scientist looking for a cure for a disease trying to help humanity might make $60,000 a year if they're lucky. Or whether it is the monetary system, which has class division built right into its structure. For example, if I have $1 million to spare and I put it into a CD at 4% interest, I will make $40,000 a year. No social contribution, no nothing. However, if I'm a lower class person and have to take loans to buy my car or home, I am paying in interest, which, in abstraction, is going to pay that millionaire with the 4% CD. This stealing from the poor to pay the rich is a foundational, built-in aspect of the monetary system, and it could be labeled structural classism. Of course, historically, social stratification has always been deemed unfair, but obviously accepted overall as how 1% of the population owns 40% of the planet's wealth. But, material fairness aside, there is something else going on underneath the surface of inequality, causing an incredible deterioration in public health as a whole.
Well, I think people are often puzzled by the contrast between the material success of our societies, unprecedented levels of wealth, and the many social failings. I mean, you know, if you look at the rates of drug abuse or violence or self-harm amongst kids or mental illness, there's clearly something going deeply wrong with our societies. What the data that I've been describing does is simply shows that intuition that people have had for hundreds of years, that inequality is divisive and socially corrosive, that intuition is truer than I think we ever imagined. There are very powerful psychological and social effects of inequality, more to do, I suppose, with feelings of superiority and inferiority, that kind of division, and maybe going with the sort of respect, disrespect, people feeling looked down on at the bottom, which, by the way, is why violence is more common in more unequal societies. It's the trigger to violence is so often people feeling looked down on and disrespected.
If there is one principle I can emphasize that is the most important principle underlying the prevention of violence, it would be equality. The single most significant factor that affects the rate of violence is the degree of equality versus the degree of inequality in that society.
So what one's looking at is a sort of general social dysfunction. It's not just one or two things that go wrong as inequality increases. It seems to be everything, whether we're talking about crime or health or mental illness or whatever.
One of the really disturbing findings out in public health there is never ever make the mistake of being poor or being born poor. Your health pays for it in endless sorts of ways, something known as the health socioeconomic gradient. As you move down from the highest strata in society in terms of socioeconomic status, every step down, health gets worse for umpteen different diseases. Life expectancy gets worse, infant mortality rate, everything you could look at. So a huge issue has been, why is it that this gradient exists? Totally simple, obvious answer, which is if you were chronically sick, you're not going to be very productive, so health causes drive socioeconomic differences. Not that in the slightest. On the very simple level that you could look at socioeconomic status of a 10-year-old, and that's going to predict something about their health decades later. So that's the direction of causality.
Okay. That whole film, Zeitgeist, moving forward 2011, with an excellent representation of the whole system we're in, you know, is something you need to go down and watch. Now, folks, I don't particularly like asking for donations, but I've always put out a product. I've always put out a good magazine. I sold it. I sold over 10,000 magazines every month. For years and years and years. That ended with the accident, which wasn't any accident. Israeli companies were tapping my phones. I was talking about 9/11. I was saying the same thing that the director of the War College is telling you right now about 9/11. I told you about that in the April issue, the March issue of 2004. In April 2004, the George Bush allowed the NSA to tap everybody's phones. In May 20th, I called home, asked my son where I needed to go next, and next thing I knew, I was in an accident, a motorcycle accident. When that failed to kill me, and I was hit hard enough to roll a Road King over me 3 times, and I basically was able to walk away from it. No broken bones, 3 broken ribs, and a broken collarbone, and then I was kept unconscious for 3 months, was held all house young. The exact things I've been talking about, the exact things that were fed to Mark Taylor, the first student shot at Columbine. So you see how all this ties together. They couldn't kill me, and they did, and I wouldn't take the injections, and I wouldn't take their medication, and I'm very, very healthy. But they did manage to go to all of my advertisers, all of my investors, all the people. Well, okay, you know, Clay's a racist. Clay's this. Clay's that. And what I am is a reporter that's giving you the whole news and what's happening with the New World Order. and I've been doing it, and I've been bringing people like Donna Taylor and Edgar Steele to the forefront. I need your support. Order a book. You can get it immediately by sending me a $20 donation. And I got